Some last minute news you need to know before you draft. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Dan Schneier, and we are catching up on some last minute news. We are less than a week away from the start of the NFL season, and a bunch of drafts are happening this weekend, more than half of them, if I understand the numbers correctly. And one big piece of news that we haven't talked about on the FFT in 5 podcast yet is the fact that the Dolphins added Jeff Wilson to IR. This was kind of a surprise. The Dolphins have been kind of a closed system or a black box, whatever metaphor you want to use over the past couple of years, especially when it comes to their running backs. And all of a sudden, Jeff Wilson not going to be there for the first 4 games of the season, dealing with a abdominal injury and some hand issues as well. So what do you expect, Dan, from this Dolphins backfield to start the season?
I think to start the season, Raheem Mostert will probably be somebody you want in your weekly flex. But I got my eye on Devin Achane. He's a running back whose film was a lot better than people realize, was a much tougher runner between the tackles and also better vision between the tackles than his speed alone suggests. I found him to be a perfect fit for an outside zone blocking scheme. That's what they run in Miami. So I think he could end up being like that league winning type last round pick because he's injured right now too. Don't expect him to play early on, just expect to stash him. But you get him so cheap now because of that injury. It didn't allow the hype to build in the preseason or training camp. So that's who I have my eye on.
Yeah, he's dealing with that shoulder injury. We saw early on in the season, Raheem Mostert was like a solid RB2 last year before they traded for Jeff Wilson. So I think he can be like a low end, 20 to 25 ranked running back. It's actually, early on in the season, it's always tough because guys haven't lost their jobs yet. Guys haven't gotten hurt yet. So the running back position looks deeper in week 1 than it actually will be. But I do think like if you've drafted Raheem Mostert in the middle rounds, you're probably going to have a decent starter. But I agree. If you're looking for upside, Devin Achane is the way to go. We talked about this one on yesterday's podcast, but I want to get your thoughts. Cooper Kupp. Sean McVay, it was initially reported as like he's day-to-day. Sean McVay really didn't give any details, including saying that he's day-to-day. What he said was like, we're just taking it a day at a time, but he suffered a setback with that hamstring injury. Where are you drafting Cooper Kupp right now?
I'm not particularly. I'm really not. I have 0 shares of Kupp, and this is my thing with it. I don't believe in injury-prone players. Me and you had that discussion. But what I do believe in is I don't like to draft players who are already injured, specifically if those are soft tissue injuries, which this one is. Obviously, in Kupp's situation, he's dealt with these in the past, and also we don't know exactly when he's going to be back because McVay made it clear he's only going to come back when they feel like he's 100% and ready to. So that could end up being a month. It could end up being longer. I don't even know. Like, this is just not a situation I feel comfortable with. Like, unless he drops all the way into round 4 for me, I probably won't draft Cooper Kupp. Maybe round 3, back end round 3. But that's just the way I draft. I don't like to draft already injured players with soft tissue injuries.
Is there anyone in this Rams receiving group that you would feel comfortable starting in week 1 if Cooper Kupp's out?
Yeah, I've been on the Van Jefferson train for a while. Again, I just think back to his Florida tape, and he was better than people realize at separating on the underneath, especially intermediate routes. He's not just a deep threat, or at least wasn't on his college tape. He hasn't shown that yet at the NFL level. It's been a few years, but I think early on, this could be maybe the season that he realizes his potential. So I like Van Jefferson.
I also just think like Tyler Higbee's probably going to be a boring, solid PPR starter at tight end. And one name to keep in mind is Puka Nacua. I've thrown a late round dart at him a few times. He's got really nice, like after the catch ability is what he showed in college at BYU, and not a great athlete, late round pick, not a high probability bet, but I get the feeling the Rams think he's a kind of really nice late round find for them. They had a ton of late round picks, so they had a lot of opportunities there. They seem to really like him. So I think he's got a chance, Puka Nacua, to be useful. Joe Burrow, back at practice on Thursday. Looks like he's trending towards week 1. Don't really need to spend a lot of time talking about that one. It's just good to see that he's on track as we expected. So we'll move on to Kendre Miller. He's dealing with the hamstring injury. Don't know the severity of that one, but that's really frustrating because he's had a real up and down training camp. He had, early on, it looked like he had an opportunity to unlock a role with Alvin Kamara suspended. Then he has a knee injury. We thought that was serious. He's back in a week. Didn't end up being an issue. Now he's got this hamstring injury. I'm still throwing my late round darts at him. He's going late enough that it doesn't really change how I view him. You can draft him in the 10th, 11th round, and it's an all upside pick. But this does make it tougher if he misses a couple of games to actually lock in a role. Now, the question I want to ask is, where are you going to rank Jamal Williams for week 1 if Kendre Miller's out and Alvin Kamara, we know he's suspended?
Yeah, assuming both are out, I still think they'll kind of mix and match in other players. Maybe Taysom Hill gets some reps even that he won't normally get. So I think he'll be just inside my top 24, Jamal Williams, because still have to give that volume ranking. But on Kendre Miller, Chris, this is a prospect I was super excited about because his tape was good, but I'm getting the feeling this could be a lost season. A lot of the times when you get these injuries, like a knee injury, anything lower body, when you try to make the comeback, you get compensation injuries, which are 2 other areas of your lower body. Obviously, we see it now happening with Miller. And remember, he had to miss the college football playoff game with an injury as well. So it just feels like that timeline. It's a lot of injuries in a short period of time. So I'm a little bit scared, and that sucks because I love his talent.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. Best of luck with your drafts. We'll see you next week.